Welcome back to my studio practice. Here we're going to look at black. This is ivory black. Now, I think ivory black is also carbon black because ivory is from a carbon-based life form. And so because it's organic material, you would think there is carbon content in it. People don't like using carbon black or ivory black or even lamp black, preferring to mix their own from blues, reds and browns. This one is indigo. Indigo is reputed to be a blue-black. And if you look at the reference photo, you can see that there is a blue cast to the sheen that is on the bird's back. And last of all, because I promised that I was using French ultramarine blue with my brown, that normally creates a black. So what I'm keen to do is just map in the local colour of this bird, the collared Acacari. Now, let's see. Because I'm very short-sighted, I'm going to scale up the studio picture as big as I can so I can see what it is I'm looking at. And that'll do it, okay. And you will get a good look at me for your troubles. Okay, now back into the Winsor and Newton Artisan water-mixable stand oil and water, and I've allowed it to get dirty with the accumulation of painting that I've done so far. Excuse the cold. So that's not a problem to me. It shouldn't really be a problem to you either. First of all, we're dealing with black, so I'm going to go in straight to the French ultramarine blue. And I believe that by adding this blue onto the brown that exists, I should be able to achieve a sort of black colour. Now I think what I've done is I've removed so much material. Now the back kind of curves in there, and then I have to correct the drawing somewhat because the wing material, the wing does a little bump here. There's a little bump as it comes down onto the wing. Changes direction a fraction there. Okay, now because I've diluted the colour so much, I'm going to bring in some more burnt umber into the blue mix and just add it because glazing isn't working. And there we see, look, we have a black. Here we go. So like I say, I'm just blocking in the local colours. So the colours that are in the vicinity of the one that I want to use. Okay. Now, you would think that French ultramarine blue would be ideal because of the blue cast to the black feathers. Mixing a blue that has a quantity of black within it would be ideal. And my drawing has deviated a little bit again. Okay, I can correct that with the background. So that's a little bit more black. However, we have mentioned the blue-black that is indigo, and I want to see how that translates onto the surface. So I need a shadow area here where the body sort of bulks out a little bit there. So that's okay. People don't have quite so many problems with indigo as they do with using black. Now we have a black area right under the chin, straight across for the beak. The indigo is the same age as the other paints, but it's much more juicy and seems to be working very well indeed. Okay, so this is me now painting with indigo to find the black that I'm looking for. Now I would hope that with the indigo I would be able to add white to a wet mix and bring out the blue content of the indigo. Now there's a little ridge up there because the beak travels upward there, and there is a little brow here at the top of the beak. Now I've been reassessing my drawing, and my drawing seems to be incorrect in a certain area, in that the beak of my bird is very downward by comparison to the bird there. It kind of goes up a little bit more for the bird in the photo. And the head peaks and then returns backwards over the eye, which is one plane, and then the cheek makes a bulge just under the eye there, and curves rather squarely down and then back in towards the body. Where we need to emphasize that V nick, little cut into the back into the collar of this collared Acacari. So now looking at it, I'm not actually seeing a great differential between the blue-black mix that I made and the indigo mix, which is flowing beautifully off the brush. And because there's so much stand oil in the water mix, it seems to have this self-leveling ability. So let's see, that comes down that way a little bit and goes back upon itself a fraction. So as you can see, I've done the drawing, but I'm also spending a lot of time correcting the drawing with the paint. It comes down there. So that feels more accurate. Okay, now I'm going to use indigo for this next section here. We have this section which includes the underside of the wing, and traverses across here to be lost in the shoulder. So that should come out a little bit there. Scoop upwards. Let's get some more material on the brush. Some more paint. So I can see a kind of concave aspect to that mark. A flattened line there. Should be higher. Higher still. Doubling back upon itself. And there's the shape that I need for the yellow. And I also have a little bit that suggests the form of the bird here. A little bit. It's quite dark in there. I know I'm working with black, but it's quite dark in there, so I'll block that in. And then it lightens around this area here. What happens if I use black? So, we know that there's a line here that I wish to observe. And goes up into that shoulder area and disappears into the back. So I can't see a difference between the different blacks that are being applied. What I can see is that the brow ridge here should be a little bit higher before it tilts down. And the tail. So again, back in with my black. The tail is fairly lengthy. And thin. So, does it come as far down as here? Should stop round about there. Perhaps a little bit short of that. I'll just go back in with my ultramarine blue because I see a blue. Too juicy. I see a blue. Which stops before the wingtip. And the wingtip does not extend beyond the body. So let's pull that in. So really the colour should stop about there. Okay. Now if I draw a line there, I should be able to remind myself that the various different parts of the bird are there. And the back comes round, there's a light patch in this area here. Okay, now that seems a little bit abrupt, but it's all going to be painted over into my yellow from my previous painting, and I should really dirty this. Okay, so let's use the black. And black plus yellow ochre gives a lovely olive, but black plus this green gives a fairly natural green looking colour. And I'm going to go in with green. And green is the shade colour that I'm looking for now. The V comes across. I can see a little bit of white in there. Across and down. Across the concave. And returning back upon itself, where the first of the red bands appears. Now, there's also a separation here, which looks as if this part is different from this part here. Just tentatively trying to bring the paint into the place where it belongs, and I think it comes down at a slight diagonal there. Now, there's a rumour, and I've said it before, that lights dry darker and darks dry lighter, so I am going to try and pull in a little bit of my yellow here, and it's almost as if it's sucking its tummy in there, pulling its tummy in a little bit, and back to the same mix, which on my palette looks green, but on the canvas looks so yellow. Okay, here we go. And this widens out here and gets confused amongst all this other material that's going on, all this other stuff that's happening. Okay, so that yellow is not bright enough to suggest what it is we're looking for. Got some old white from the previous painting there. Let's knock it back with the green. And I can see a little cut there coming down into a separate area here. I can see a little triangle. Now, that is way too bright for what I need. So I'm going to dampen it down with some black mixed in with some of my yellow. And then it's gone too far the other way. So I'm going to go back in with yellow, it's too black. see if I can get a colour that I like. That might make a good shadow colour here. So as I was saying, there is so much stand oil in this mix, in the ratio between water and stand oil ratio, that the mix has become so viscous that it's self-leveling. So now I'm going to go in with a red which is far too dark for the red that I'm looking for, because I'm working from dark to light. And this red is just intended to show that there is a red there. And that it lives about here on the bird. And it's so dark that it can act as my shadow colour, so that when the lighter reds are placed on it, there is something to act against. There's some way to make a comparison. You can see the different reds that I've got. Cadmium red light. This one is alizarin crimson. There's a magenta there. So I have quite a lot of reds at my disposal. So here, again, the darkest value that I need for this area that curls round and down and becomes the puff leg. The puff leg for the toucan, which is an Acacari. So there, getting closer with every pass. And again, back into the alizarin crimson, very, very cool red, and onto the rump area, which is under that wing, and forms a kind of diagonal in that direction. Which kind of gets lost in there. Okay. I am now beginning to see my bird in relation to the background. It's not the most well lit of images. But the lightest part of it is one of the bits that I want to correct. And I don't want to go in with pure white. I get too much red in my mix for clearing off this mix. I should have a nice lilac colour if it hasn't dried in already. And as you can see at the top of the beak, there's a highlight. And the highlight indicates to me that the beak does not come high enough. And so I've tried to correct it, and I've overcorrected it. Possibly there. I can fix this later on. I think the problem is it comes up there a little bit higher and then it goes across. And then that's where it comes down and upon itself. And the eyeball is very, very fierce with this fierce outline. And then the beak goes up before it almost goes straight across to join up. I think that would be fixable. Okay, let's go back into our darks. I'm going to use my dull black here. And I'm going to try and show that the foot, its left foot, is actually here. So it has to widen out at the base. And this foot comes down and then scoots across almost horizontally with a slight taper. So let's correct that. Okay. The beak also has a dark tip to it. And some extraordinary zigzags. Let's pull that across there. And we know that the zigzags exist, so we'll just kind of map them in a little. Plus the rima, which is the separation we have on our lips here. The little line that we see that separates the top lip from the lower lip. Now, did I get that? I actually feel as if a gentler transition actually captures the beak. So there we are. Let's pull some cerulean blue, just a small amount, in with the indigo. Now with the addition of a little touch of white, you can see the blue cast of the indigo. And I need that colour to frame the outside of the body, the little tilt, and the rest of the body up to the throat. My hand slipped, so I'm going to try and scrape that away a little bit. remove some material that I don't need, and if I can, I'll try and pull that into the body. And bring out that kind of triangle that I saw earlier, and which I identified through scraping back. So if I work that area somewhat, I should be able to temper it down a little bit, knock it back, blend it in. I'm working wet and wet, but I want to leave that little highlight nearest the light source, which I presume is coming in that direction. So hopefully you haven't missed any of that. The highlight of the forehead, so that would be here. And let's pull in a little bit extra light. That's it. Now there is a separation between these feathers here and the back. And now that I can see that, let's blend it in a little bit more. Blend it in. Blend, 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 blend. I can see that this joins into that. So we have an area of dark followed by an area of light. And the blending is so easy with the mix that is that's created right now. So it's a good mix to use. Can I see that it goes up and under and over the back? Okay, I can pull a little bit more of this material down into the back and hopefully make it a little bit more subtle than it was. And I would say of them all, the black that's working most for me is the indigo, but we need the deadness of the tube black to help make a difference. Not all your colours can be lively, so you actually need the deadness of a tube black to help bring out the contrast between it and other colours. Okay, now I see the same lovely blue cast on the tail to the outside. And wipe off the excess and do a little bit of blending. Okay. In terms of local colour, I can see a fairly dirty yellow in amongst the beak colours. About there, that's way too strong. So let's try this. Still too strong. But we'll persevere with it because we just want to get a colour down at this stage. And there's a red. Let's not change the brush. Sometimes colours straight out of the tube can be very, very strong. So it's actually worth your while having a little bit of dirt in your colours to knock them back. Help temper them. And even in amongst that colour, I can now see a little bit of mud colour. Okay. And see if we can blend that in a little. Okay, so while the burnt umber was our base colour, our underpainting, this layer that I'm doing right now is also a kind of underpainting. You see there's that little cheek detail there, which helps add form to the cheek and neck. And does it exist under the chin a little? I think it comes from here and then dissolves into that area. Okay, wipe off. Let's see if we can do some blending. Where the dark pulls into the light there a little bit. Like it disappears somewhat. Okay, I think even a lighter version of that mix would do well for the top of the leg. And outline the outside of that foot. So, to me, that seems closer than where we were before we started. I'm using that indigo dirt colour to help knock back that yellow into the kind of shadow colour that I want it to be. And we will end up applying some really nice bright yellows to help that pop. Bring it forward. Okay, and so now I feel that there's a little light patch that white that we had. See if we can pick it up. No. So let's just suggest that it's in here. That light area is in there. There's a little change in colour just there. Even if it's the wrong colour, it reminds me that it exists, it's there, and that I need to work on it. So we're now a step closer. I'm tempted to draw into it again before I lose it. The tail comes up here, then into this body part here. Up as far as there, and then it vanishes. In the back, there's a lighter triangle here. And I suppose I could go in with a lighter mix. This white is not artisan. It's the artist oil colour. On their site, Winsor and Newton say that the water-mixable paints can be combined with all the other paints, all the other oil paints. So we're going to test that theory out right now. Just as soon as I get the cap back on the lid, back on the jar. Okay, small amount of white. Lighten that up a tad, just a fraction. Just a fraction. There. In with more medium, get it nice and mobile. What do you know? We have a light colour. It helps show that little triangle there. Now, yeah, way too light. Far too light. But it does help me see where that triangle exists. So now it plus the colour that was on below should be able to mix together. And it does, but it's making a kind of putty blue. So I can't wait for it to dry and go back in again with more darks. I'm trying to paint alla prima, so let's go back in with my black. See if we can knock it back a little. Ultimately, like I say, I can wait for it all to dry and then I can glaze it. Suddenly that black doesn't seem so dull anymore. So. Okay, that back there. That bit there is the light part, so I really need that there to show where that is. Where the primary feathers are. And so there's a sort of equivalent of chiaroscuro. I can see light, dark, light, dark. I can see the shape emerging. I think that'll do. If I compare them side by side. Not sure I've corrected the beak enough. I think the problem is it doesn't come out far enough there. So it kind of tapers off a little bit too quickly. If I do that and change the trajectory, that actually looks a little bit better. And see, when we start working the background colour, we can correct any part of the drawing which appears unsatisfactory. But there, I feel that we are a lot closer. So, thank you for viewing this instalment of my studio art practice. Thank you for viewing. I hope you found something that was of interest to you, and maybe that you found something that would help inspire creativity for you, wherever you may be. Thanks for viewing this one. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye now.